If you watch the Android Authority channel often, you've probably seen me be pretty hard on Samsung. I recently called Samsung lazy in comparison to the OnePlus 13. I also wondered why the Galaxy S25 and S25 Plus even exist at all. Today though, Samsung has done something truly notable. It has launched a brand new entry in the Galaxy S series, the Galaxy S25 Edge. This is the first new Galaxy S phone launched in many years, in fact, since 2020 with the Galaxy S20 Ultra. So, what do you need to know about this phone? I can tell you it all in one word: Frankenstein. Stay with me here. As a quick refresher, for the past 5 years, there have been 3 Galaxy S phones. This year, we had the Galaxy S25, the smallest and cheapest version. Then we had the Galaxy S25 Plus, a slightly larger version of that phone. And of course, the mighty Galaxy S25 Ultra, which has all the bells and whistles that you would expect from a flagship in 2025. This strategy has worked well for Samsung because it's very obvious to the consumer which phone is which and why it costs what it costs. But now we have the Galaxy S25 Edge. So where does this one fit inside this Galaxy S25 lineup? Well, the issue there is that this phone is a Frankenstein version of all 3 other phones. So it kind of doesn't fit anywhere, at least not conveniently. So you know in the Frankenstein story that a mad scientist decides he's going to create life from nothing by combining a bunch of human parts together. An arm from over here, a leg from over here, and a brain from over there combined into all one big monster. Well, that's kind of what Samsung has done here with the Galaxy S25 Edge. It's taken parts from the other 3 phones in the family, combined them all together, and thrown it into a slightly different design. The most important thing you need to know about the Galaxy S25 Edge is that it is thin. Very, very thin. If you measure it without taking into account the camera bump, you get 5.8 millimeters of thickness, which is about 2 millimeters less than most other smartphones on the market. Compared to the Galaxy S25 Ultra, it is positively svelte. When I held it in my hand, I couldn't believe how thin it actually was. In fact, I felt it might be a little too thin, like if I was a little bit stronger, I could just crush it in my hand. I'm not sure how this will translate for most people who are going to pick up the phone, but for me, I felt it could be a little bit thicker. As far as sizing goes, it's about the same size as the Galaxy S25 Plus, including that 6.7-inch display. Basically, it's just a very, very thin Galaxy S25 Plus. However, on the back of the phone, you'll notice that the camera module is much different than what we see on any other Galaxy S25 phone. This is an interesting move by Samsung, considering that with the Galaxy S25 series, it changed the design of the camera modules across all the phones to make them all look very cohesive. And now it's introduced a new phone in the series that doesn't have that same cohesiveness, which is an interesting decision. Really, what you need to know here is that this is basically a Galaxy S25 phone with a very thin frame and a different camera module. Other than that, it's a Galaxy S phone through and through. So where does the Frankenstein stuff come into play? Obviously, since this phone looks so much like the Galaxy S25 Plus, it borrows a lot of specs from that phone, including the Snapdragon 8 Elite for Galaxy processor, 12 gigabytes of RAM, and either 256 or 512 gigabytes of storage. So basically the same stuff that you get with the Galaxy S25 Plus. For the battery though, Samsung did not take that from the Galaxy S25 Plus and instead took it from the vanilla S25. In fact, it actually shrunk the battery just a tiny bit, so this is even smaller than what you see in the S25. You're probably hoping that because the battery is smaller, it's using the new silicon carbon technology, the same that we saw in the OnePlus 13. However, that's not the case. This is the same lithium-ion battery that you see in most other smartphones, which means that the battery life of this phone is probably going to be worse than what we see on the Galaxy S25. In fact, it might be a lot worse because it's a smaller battery in a bigger phone with a brighter display. So I don't really know what Samsung was hoping for here, but I can guarantee you the battery life on this phone is not going to be great. The Galaxy S25 Edge also has the same charging speeds as the vanilla S25, which means 25 watts with a cable and 15 watt wireless charging. This is unfortunate because this is significantly slower than the S25 Plus and the S25 Ultra. As far as the rest of the specs and features go, those are all taken from the Ultra. Around the sides, you have titanium, And you also have the same color options as the Galaxy S25 Ultra, which includes titanium silver, icy blue, and jet black. The primary camera lens is also taken from the Ultra. There is a 200 megapixel camera sensor here, flanked by the same 12 megapixel ultra-wide camera that you find on the Ultra. And on the selfie camera, it's the same story. Same selfie camera as you see from the Ultra. What's missing though are the two telephoto lenses of the Ultra. In fact, there are no telephoto lenses on this phone. A curious omission for a phone that costs as much as this one does. Because Samsung is Frankensteining these phones together, certain things had to be left behind, and it's really unfortunate that to get the phone to be this thin, we had to leave behind a big battery and telephoto lenses. But I guess if you really want a thin phone, now you have that option. Samsung did find ways to bring two unique features to the Galaxy S25 Edge that you won't find on any other Galaxy S25 phone. The first is a real minor one, which is that it can record log video on the selfie camera. The other three Galaxy S25 phones can record log video on the rear camera, but not on the front. But this one can do any camera, which is pretty cool. I asked Samsung if this feature was going to roll out in a software update to other Galaxy S25 phones, and it said maybe. So who knows there. The second thing unique to this phone is the glass. This does not have Gorilla Glass Victus on the front like the Galaxy S25 and S25 Plus, and it doesn't have Gorilla Glass Armor like the Galaxy S25 Ultra. Instead, it has something called Gorilla Glass Ceramic. Now, this is just as strong as the glass that's on the Ultra, but it doesn't include the anti-reflective coating. I don't know about you, but the anti-reflective coating is the coolest thing about the Galaxy S25 Ultra, so the fact that it's not here on this phone is pretty disappointing. But ultimately, the thing that's the most disappointing about this phone is the price. So since Samsung's Frankenstein phone has a very small battery, lacks telephoto lenses, among a bunch of other compromises, you'd think pricing-wise that it would slot right between the Galaxy S25 and S25 Plus. However, that's not the case. This phone starts at $1,099, making it more expensive than the Galaxy S25 Plus, but still less expensive than the Galaxy S25 Ultra. Honestly, I don't know what Samsung's strategy is here. There are very few people out there that I can think of who would want a super slim smartphone that's more expensive than a Galaxy S25 Plus, but with a smaller battery and a weaker camera system. Well, at least a less versatile camera system, considering that 200 megapixel sensor is still going to be a lot better than the sensor that's on the Galaxy S25 Plus. But ultimately, this is just confusing now. Why would someone say, oh, this phone is thinner, so therefore it's better? Like, I just don't see very many Samsung fans wanting that. And when you take into the account that the Galaxy S25 Plus is already easily found for under $850, Samsung charging $1,099 for this one makes very little sense. I know it sounds like I don't like this phone, but I do think it's really cool that Samsung is trying something new. I really like that Samsung is throwing a wrench into the works and saying, let's try to make a phone really, really thin and see how it does. And to be fair, this phone has a lot of cool things. That 200 megapixel sensor, for example, has never been on a Galaxy S phone that's not an Ultra phone. So it's really cool that you can now get that and spend a little bit less money. So I'm excited to see how Samsung fans react to this phone, but on paper, it just doesn't seem like it's as good of a sell as maybe Samsung hopes it's going to be. If I were to Frankenstein together a Samsung phone based on the Galaxy S25 series, it wouldn't look anything like this. If you want to know what that would look like, I actually already made a video about it, which I'll throw up here if you want to check it out. But don't jump away just yet. Jump down into the comments and let me know what your Frankenstein Samsung phone would look like. And also let me know if it looks anything like the Galaxy S25 Edge. I'll be down there responding to you guys, so I'll see you there.